Welcome to Rowdys Gun Podcast. It's a podcast about guns, brought to you by sweatsprings.com. Here's Rowdy.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today and tuning in. I'm pretty excited about today. We have Jill Hamblin here. And I think I put the B in there that time.
I think so.
Okay, all right. Sometimes I say it without the B and it's just kind of weird. But today we are going to talk about female shooters and how amazing they are. So I got to tell you, I want to start off with a story, Jill. I'm on the range a short time ago. And when I say short time, I mean that's guy time. So that could be anywhere from last month to 3 years ago, right? So you know what I'm talking about. So a short time ago, I was on the range and we were doing this class. And on the class, there was a couple of female shooters and then a couple of guy shooters. And just like every time, everybody's ribbing each other. And they're like, hey, making fun of other people. And I got to tell you, it was one of the coolest moments in the world. And I still remember this even to this day, which is saying something for being a guy. But on the range, they were kind of, they were making fun of the female shooters. But it wasn't a making fun of, hey, you shouldn't be on the range. It was, hey, you're one of us now, so we're going to make fun of you. Yeah. There's a little bit of a difference, right?
Yeah.
And so they're making fun of this shooter, and she gets up to shoot, and she does one of the smoothest mag changes I've ever seen in my life. And it was like slow motion. This guy that was making fun of her was like watching her, and she does this reload where it was just smooth and it almost looked like a movie scene, right? And it shut everybody up, right, from that point on. And some of the guys that might be listening, guys that are gun guys that are out on the range, they know what I'm talking about. Like when something like that happens, the respect level just goes through the roof, right? So I say that because lady shooters, female shooters, I don't know what you want to call that, but they're taking over this sport of shooting and they're dominating it.
Well, you know what they say, Rowdy? Shoot like a lady.
They do say that, and I wish. And sometimes I've seen some ladies shoot, and I'm like, ooh, that's a painful target right there. So I know what you mean. But tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do for a job, and we'll go from there.
Okay. My name is Jill Hamblin with a B.
With a B. with a B.
I was raised predominantly in southern Utah most of my life. I am married to my high school sweetheart over 22 years. I have 3 amazing boys. My husband and I own the Cedar Post Pawn Shop in Hurricane. We've been doing that for about 16 years now, and with that goes hand in hand firearms. Yep. And then I started training handgun instruction. I'm an NRA handgun instructor. I started doing that about 3 years ago, as well as teaching concealed carry classes for Utah and Arizona. Perfect.
And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted you to be on this podcast, was because you do a wide range. So you and I shot a video a while ago about, again, guy time. It could be up to 3 years ago. We shot a video for the Southwest Center about firearms and locking them up.
Right.
And that was the first time I'd seen you on the range, and it was interesting because everybody that was there, we were shooting this video, and I don't know if you knew this or not at the time, but we started asking you to do more and more things on the video. Like, all right, we're going to have you run from here to here. You're going to shoot all these targets because you're kind of a badass.
Oh,
so
thanks.
On the range. So I don't know am I allowed to say that, Sean? On the range? Okay. I'm getting the okay. So, but you really are. And so I was really impressed with that. And so
thank you.
You talk the talk, but you also walk the walk, which is pretty rare with a lot of gun people. Tell us what got you into shooting. 'Cause I mean, you're where you're at now. Did you just pick up a rifle and you were like, let's do this?
So it's kind of a long time coming. My family grew up hunting.
Okay.
So grew up hunting and that kind of thing. But I was the oldest cousin and sibling, so I mostly had to babysit and didn't get to actually do it. So then when my husband and I got married, we started hunting, and I actually got to participate, and it was really awesome. And then when we got into the firearms industry at the pawn shop, I really wanted to learn about guns more or less so I could sell them. I didn't want to be that ignorant person that didn't know. So I started kind of getting into that, and then leaned towards self-defense and wanted to carry concealed carry. So I started doing that forever. And then we had a friend that took us to a 4-day defensive handgun training.
Yeah.
Just something that I never really thought I'd be super into, but I'm like, okay, if I'm going to carry, I probably should get some training. So we did that, and that's what hooked me. It was so empowering to learn about safe gun handling. And then once you get the jitters out of the way and you actually learn how to handle them, from then it's all just fun.
Okay.
So super awesome.
Cool. So tell me about when you kind of got on the range for the first time. What was the attitude towards you as a female shooter?
The attitudes typically, they're watching like they might not know what they're doing. Sure. And it can be a little intimidating to see a lot of people that you assume are going to be way better than you. But really it changed for me because more or less people are willing to help. They like to see people grow in that industry. The firearms industry, everybody's so into wanting people to learn about it and for it to grow that they were actually super helpful. And I didn't feel intimidated after the initial shock and awe of being there.
Yeah. Were you offended at all? I mean, you mentioned that people were just willing to be there and help you specifically. And I see that a lot with classes that I've taught, and I've had other range instructors with me, and they see a lady shooter, a female shooter, they're like, oh, I better hover and make sure that everything's good. Did you ever get offended by any of that?
I didn't get offended, but it made me definitely want to be good enough to not have to have somebody worry about my safe handling. So it made me want to be awesome.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, so switching gears just a little bit on that. So you were on the range, you've been instructed, you've been taught. Now you do that. You're teaching, you teach the concealed carry class, and you're teaching personalized training as well, right? People can contact you. So I want to go to the concealed carry class real quick for you. Recently we've had this change in our law in Utah, where you don't have to take the concealed carry class to carry a firearm. We talked about this before on this show specifically. Have you noticed any change in any of your classes? Have you had a class in recently?
I have. I've noticed a slight change. It kind of dropped off for a minute. People were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. But as soon as that happened, I kind of almost got more activity because it's kind of back out there where people are talking about it again. And people are realizing that people are going to be carrying a gun without a lot of training. So maybe we should sign up and actually learn the laws and all that kind of thing. So it also sparked that interest of wanting to know what are the new laws coming out. So
okay. Awesome. And I can relate to that a little bit just in the fact that, me too, my emails have kind of, I thought they would just die off, right? Mm-hmm. And people are like, I don't need to take this anymore. But now people are concerned about, well, just because I don't know,
right,
doesn't mean I'm not going to get in trouble.
Exactly.
So you teach, how often do you teach the concealed carry class?
A couple times a month. I was teaching a couple times a week there for a minute, the zombie apocalypse of 2020. Right. But I teach about 2 to 3 classes a month right now.
Okay, 2 to 3 classes. And how easy would it be for somebody that's listening right now if they say, oh, I really vibe with her, she's great, I'm not as intimidated, what can I do what classes would you offer or talk to them about if they were interested?
So I always hear people ask me, well, I think I should get a gun or learn how to shoot before I take the concealed carry class. But I always tell people start there because we go over so many things, different ways you can carry, different guns you can buy, or how, everything goes. And then from there, it sparks the interest of wanting to learn more. So we cover so much in the concealed carry class. So I tell them to start there. And then from there, I do basic one-on-one shooters for brand new shooters that's never even held a gun before. That's kind of who my passion is to take somebody who's afraid to even handle one and be able to teach them and empower them to know that they can do it. It's so amazing to watch people go in there super intimidated and leaving, giving high fives and feeling so amazing after. So that, and then also I teach them different ways to carry, because I know so many instructors if you go to gun classes, they'll teach you from your outside the waistband holster, static, and on a target. Well, for concealed carry, that's not always practical, so we have to talk about different ways to carry, and some people have different limitations and things like that. So I take, instead of say, carry your gun this way, I find out how they're going to carry and teach them how to do that safely. So
I want to touch base on that, because that is really important. I mean, in every aspect that I've ever taught or been in a gun store or anything like that, for a guy, it's relatively easy. It's easier
Right.
for us to carry a concealed
Right.
firearm, right? For the lady shooters, it is a different story altogether,
Yeah.
right? With fashion, with what they're comfortable with wearing.
Yeah.
You kind of have to articulate that into that. So
Yep.
how does that usually work as far as you as a lady shooter? Do you switch the way you carry based off of what you're wearing?
A little bit. I have a couple different ways of carry, and ladies, I know how to carry in leggings. Okay, so that's one of my
leggings.
Yes, sir.
I have no idea what leggings are.
You know,
but
yoga pants.
I know yoga pants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I know yoga
I know how to
pants.
carry a gun in yoga pants, ladies.
Do you
so-
really?
Oh, yeah.
That is a feat.
I know.
Right there.
I know.
Wow.
So I like to show women. I'll show up in different kinds of ways that I'm wearing just normal clothing, and then show them where I'm carrying, and everybody's shocked. So we can do it. It is a little different for women to conceal carry. Our frames are built differently.
Sure.
So I have different ways that people can do it. It's not just one size fits all.
Okay.
So.
Perfect. So going off of that just a little bit, I want to talk a little bit more because this comes up wherever I'm at. Like I've been in gun stores before, and I've been just kind of walking around, or I've been at the gun counter and I've been talking, and this happens all the time. And I think this frustrates a lot of guys that have people in their life that are shooters, female shooters. When the lady walks up to the counter and they're like, I want to look at a 45 auto caliber, and the guy behind the counter instantly is like, that's too much gun for you. Let's get you on a 380 or even a 22. How, as a female shooter, how would you respond to that? I mean, you've been around firearms, you've been around calibers, you've shot different kinds.
Right.
How would you respond to that? That's a question.
That's
I'm
a
kind of
loaded
throwing
question.
At you.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No,
That's
you're
kinda
good.
on there,
That's a good loaded question. For me, I am 4'11" and a half, so I have little people syndrome. So I've always wanted the big power, just as that kind of thing. So I don't know, I think I would probably just laugh it off and just, I'm really strong about this is what I want. But I also tell women when they go in to look at guns, you're going to have this gun counter person that's going to say, buy this gun. This is the best one. You'll go to a whole different store and they'll tell you, buy this one. It's a Ford and Chevy kind of thing.
Yep.
It's completely different. So I always just tell people, find the one that fits your hand, because if they don't feel good, it doesn't matter what that guy likes or that lady likes. It doesn't matter. You have to feel good even before you even fire it. And us ladies always try to get the little teeny tiny ones.
Yep.
And that's the big thing too, is to remind them that they can be the harder ones to use. So
they can.
Yeah.
They're difficult. I've carried a smaller one, and
Yeah.
it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad. Well, that's great. So if you're teaching a class, we're going to kind of go down that same road. So if you're teaching a class and one of your students walks up to you and says, look, I've never carried one before. I'm brand new. This one I think feels right. What you've kind of touched base on, but let's go a little bit deeper. Where would you start to steer them after they've taken the concealed carry class? So this is right after a concealed carry class. Somebody walks up to you and they say, okay, I want to do something more, but I don't know where to start.
Right. So the first thing I would do is I like to be able to put different guns in their hands, different styles,
Okay.
revolvers, semi-automatics. Can they rack the stuff? Can they work all the features? There's a lot of things to it. And how much are you going to practice? Because some guns are really super simple and you can just have a little more minimal training. But some guns are a lot more complicated. And so depending on the level you're willing to put into it is also going to be a question I'll ask. If it's really just self-defense and you're going to learn about it, but not really practice all the time, there's different firearms for that kind of thing.
Perfect. So for those of you that are listening, what she's referring to is sometimes when you get a semi-automatic firearm, you have the magazine, you insert the magazine, and then you have to rack the slide or move the slide to the rear of the firearm, and that can be really tough sometimes.
It really can.
Even for some fellas. I've had people come in the shop and they've been they're like, oh, this is the one I read an article about. This is the one I want.
Yeah.
But then they get it and they just can't work that firearm.
Yeah.
So that's important.
It is.
It's huge. What do you carry most of the time? I want to ask that. This is my own personal curiosity.
Which one? Okay,
Yeah.
so
So what's your favorite? What's your go-to carry?
So I'm kind of converting, but I have a story for you. Okay, let's
Good.
start from the beginning. So when I started concealed carrying, I wanted a 45 because I'm like, you know what? It's a huge caliber for a handgun. And if I'm going to stop a bad guy, I'm going to stop a bad guy. Yep. So, and I also wanted the little teeny tiny one that I can conceal carry. Yep. So when you get a big caliber on a little tiny firearm, they kick like crazy. They have a lot of recoil. Yep. So I kept trying to really manage it. I got really good at malfunctions.
Nice.
So that, and then I decided after doing some training courses that one of my firearms needed to be worked on. And so I couldn't afford my nice, pretty 1911 again. So I lowered my standards to a Glock.
Ooh.
I know.
You and I might have issues right now.
I know. So I actually loved that gun, and I've been shooting it for about 10 years. A Glock, just a 9mm, has 3 times the amount of ammunition.
Yep.
And then my son started shooting competition, and my husband and him keep giving me crap about this whole Glock thing, right?
Okay,
so,
all right.
Yeah, and I also have the Glock little 380. That's a super easy one to conceal. Yep. So I newly converted to SIG. Ooh. I know. I feel like I'm cheating on my Glock somehow.
You kind of are. I want you to know that. You kind of are in the gun world.
I know. But I'll tell you, my Glock is right next to me because we have some trust to build, the SIG and I. So I have the 320 compact because it has a tiny little handle for my hand.
Excellent.
And then we got the 365 for concealed carry.
So, How do you like the 365?
You know what? I just got it, and I haven't even fired it yet.
No kidding.
Yeah, I just got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So new
to that one. I've had the 320 for a couple months now, and it also has the red dot on it, so that's different.
Okay.
Too, but it has iron sights that co-witness, so different flat. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So that will take a little getting used to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So can people, anybody listening or interested that or live around here or anything, like they can come in your shop, they can see what you got and hold any firearm that they got there?
Yes and no. Yes, we're kind of a smaller firearms dealer. Okay. A lot of the concealed carry stuff is really hard to get.
Absolutely. I wonder why.
I know. Yeah. So we do get a lot of stuff in, but I don't always have it all in stock.
Okay. Okay. So we've talked a lot about a lot of different things, and I'm so glad you're here because I'm hoping there's people that are listening at some point or watching this and saying, okay, this is awesome. I'm a female. I want to get into shooting. I want to dominate this sport, and they're doing some great things. And I really, before we wrap it up, I want you to talk about how they can get a hold of you specifically, if that works. Before I get there, I want to ask this question. This has been something that's kind of, so like when somebody posts an article on social media or like a news article or something, and there was one specifically, and I want to get your reaction for this as a instructor, as a shooter. There was a shooting incident where the police officer was required to neutralize the threat, make this security of the scene, right, to basically handle the situation. And a lot of the backlash came up, and one specific comment that makes me laugh, it comes up in every single one, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but once I give the comment, you're going to be like, oh, okay. It always comes up with, this specific one was, the guy stated, this officer's tactics are completely wrong. He should have just shot the gun out of the person's hand.
Yeah.
Shooting the gun out of a person's hand. I'm curious about your take on that.
Okay. So people always ask stuff like this. Should I take a less lethal shot? Should I just injure them? Because I don't want to kill somebody.
Right.
The whole thing is when you're in a very scary situation, you're going to be very lucky to hit a body-sized target.
Yes.
So the fact that you're even contemplating anything else tells a judge or jury you're probably not out of your mind in fear. So you need to just, if your life is in danger, you just need to take, the biggest target you can, which would be the body cavity.
Absolutely.
Stop your threat.
Yep. And that's exactly right. And I think that's important for a lot of people to understand is when you're in a life or death situation, you always aim for the biggest, the more target that you have.
Exactly.
And that's going to be the chest cavity.
Exactly.
In theory. So I love that. That's awesome. I always read that stuff and I get down there and I'm like,
yeah. I was here, why don't I shoot him in the knee? Or
can I do a warning shot?
I'm like, you're cold calculating, taking bullseye shots. You're probably not afraid for your life at that time.
That's right. And let's talk about sheer marksmanship. I mean, when you're in a stressful situation, we have all of our fine motor skills go down, right?
Yeah.
And we're responsible for that round when it leaves.
Yep.
And so if I'm in a life or death situation and I pull out my firearm and I'm like, I'm going to shoot this gun out of this person's hand, and I drop that round and I send it, and the chances of me actually hitting that firearm. But what happens if it goes, if I miss, or what happens when I miss and it hits the 10-year-old boy down a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm responsible for that, right?
Yes.
And that's the harsh reality of carrying a firearm.
It is.
And so I'm glad you said that, because I've been talking to some people about this scenario specifically, and they're like, well, no, I just fire a warning shot. I fire a warning shot over their head and let them know I'm serious.
Oh.
Right, you
You're
cringe.
like, you need to take more gun training classes.
And so that's a good segue. So if somebody wants to take more training from you specifically,
Yes.
how do they get a hold of you?
If they follow Cedar Post Pond on Instagram, Facebook, cedarpostpond.com, and email Jill@cedarpostpond.com. And just to let everybody know, I am a new shooter turned to instructor. So I know what it's like to be intimidated. I know what it's like to not know anything. I know what it's like to, worry about safety and all that kind of thing. So it's a really great class to come and learn with and be empowered by.
Okay. And your concealed carry classes, one more time, how often do you have a set schedule and time that you do those classes?
I do for the most part, but the best thing is if you go to cedarpostpond.com, there is a calendar, and you can even sign up for the classes right online right there.
Okay. Awesome. We're getting close. I wanted to spend just a little bit more, just the tail end of this. I want to talk about firearm safety, because that's kind of the whole reason for getting involved with this. So what does firearm safety mean to you on a personal level? I know that's kind of, I'm throwing a new question out that we didn't talk about. What does that mean to you on a personal level? Let's start with something simple, like firearm safety with carrying a firearm.
It means everything to me. I think that's the passion of why I got into teaching, is because when I started wanting to conceal carry, I was so intimidated by loading and unloading and not being safe with my firearm, and then seeing avid shooters that were unsafe. Yep. So I always tell people, a lot of times the brand new people tend to be more safe because they're really aware of what's going on, and just seeing so many careless things happen. So it starts from the ground level. I think that people forget the basics. And just learning how to safely load and unload and muzzle control. There's 4 basic safety rules that you'll learn about taking the gun safety classes, and those rules will save you every time. They're basic. It's simple.
Awesome.
And it's muscle memory.
And once you've gone through it a few times, like you say, it's muscle memory. You just know how to handle that. Yep. Do those safety rules change when you get home?
No.
Okay.
Never.
Excellent.
In fact, I always ask people, so your firearms are supposed to be pointed in a safe direction. Well, downrange, that's easy.
Right.
That's towards your target. Where's your safe direction at your house? So we talk about that.
Dude, that is a good question.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever asked that question. A lot of the time as instructors, you just assume that people will know, but they don't.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Yep.
Wow.
And everybody's house is different. Some people live on a ground level. Safe direction could be down. But what if you have an apartment below you? That's not your safe direction anymore.
Oh.
So
that's mind blown already. That's awesome. Good job on that.
Gun safety is my passion, and that's why I've loved teaching people.
That's great, and I'm so glad you're doing that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're doing that. Personal question.
Sure.
Open carry or concealed? What is your preference, and what do you like to see in the community?
I prefer concealed carry out in the community for a couple reasons. I don't like other people to panic. I also like the element of surprise. As a female, I think people aren't automatically going to assume that I'm carrying, so I have the element of surprise. At our gun store, I open carry because I feel like it's kind of a deterrent.
Yep.
So I open carry at my job and conceal carry everywhere else.
So it's situational.
It is.
What you said, I 100% agree with. I prefer to see everything concealed. There's no need to advertise.
Exactly.
And there's always this certain person that I've noticed in certain areas that walk through and they're open carry and they're almost throwing their hip out like, look at this.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, real gun guys
compensation.
don't care. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. So awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For coming out. I appreciate you. You're amazing. You're doing great things, especially in the community. And real quick, people that want to get into, maybe take it to the next level after they've talked to you and they've come and taken a class, where do you know of where they can go to start maybe competition shooting?
Yeah, so SUPS range, the Southern Utah Practical Shooting Range,
Okay.
we're going to be starting up some classes starting in June. That's going to be intro to competition and all that kind of thing. And they're going to be putting that on the calendar at SUPS range, SUPSrange.com. Really minimal cost for competition training.
Perfect.
So, and I'm pretty sure Rowdys Range does stuff like that too, maybe.
We do.
Or
Yeah.
some gun safety classes.
Yeah, we float that around. So thanks for coming, Jill.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. And everybody, lock up your firearms, be safe, have a good time, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to Rowdy's Gun Podcast, brought to you by SweatSprings.com. And Rowdy reminds you, if you or anyone you know is having a mental crisis, please lock up your firearm and contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. Like, follow, and share on all social media and podcast platforms. And until next time, this is Rowdy's Gun Podcast. This has been a production from a podcast studio.